everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video I know is going to be a long one, so I don't want to make this intro super long, but basically I have read a little over 20 books in the past 2 months, and I want to share and give you guys my review and whether I would recommend these books. I think I'm gonna say this right now, hoping this doesn't spoil anything, but I've read a lot of good books these past 2 months, so yeah, you guys are gonna be hearing a lot of like 4-star books, which I'm so excited about. A lot of them, you've likely have heard of them because a lot of these books are pretty popular, so I don't think I'm gonna go in too much depth with those books. So yeah, I feel like I need to get started because we're gonna be here a while. I just know it. 3 books I'm gonna be talking about are books that I read online on my iPad, so I don't have physical copies of them. The first book is Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. I literally read this book in 24 hours, and it takes me a long time normally to read a book, but as I've continued reading, I've gotten better with reading. It only takes me like a few days, but yeah, this was like really insane for me. So this is a very popular rom-com book. The tropes in this book are enemies to lovers, fake dating, and forced proximity. So basically, my thing about this book, I really loved it. I'm gonna try and not do like give you guys like the synopsis of the book, especially if it's like a popular book, because I feel like you've heard a lot of people talking about it. This book was really fun. I just really loved the banter that Olive and Ethan, who are the main characters in this book, have with each other. It was just, I loved it. And then I also loved obviously the romance, because of course it's a romance book, so loved that. But it was weird because like there was like this like second plot that happened in the book that I was just like not like expecting, and so I feel like my rating just like went a little bit down. So I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars. I would still recommend it, but I did wish that there wasn't like that weird second plot, like especially like once they came home from the honeymoon. It was just weird, but I still really loved it and had such a fun time reading it. The next book I read is All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. This is another romance book, but it's not like a rom-com, and the tropes in this book are small town romance, age gap, grumpy ex-sunshine, forced proximity, and definitely slow burn. Also forgot to mention single parent trope if you're into that. This book, Aurora is the main character. She's looking for a fresh start after just like a really like toxic and like really bad relationship with her ex-partner. And so she decides to go back to her hometown that she hasn't visited in like 15 or 16 years. And it's also where she grew up with her mom. Good book about just like fresh starts and stuff like that. I really enjoyed this book because even though there is a bit of romance in this book, like the main, I would say 75% of the book is about Aurora's journey of just like knowing who she is and being able to find herself and just like make her life hers again, because for so long she kind of didn't know what that looked like. So I just really love that aspect of it, but then obviously I love the romance as well. So I would definitely give it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read, this is the last like ebook I read, is The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave. It is a mystery. So basically Hannah receives a note from her husband Owen saying protect her, and the her is referring to Bailey, his daughter, and Hannah's stepdaughter. So basically she's trying to figure out like why he gave her this note. She also can't find him, he's gone missing, and so she's basically trying to figure out why he disappeared. When I was reading the book, I was like, okay, I'm going into it thinking this is what's going to happen, you know, but to my surprise the ending was something I didn't expect. But now looking back, I was so satisfied with how it ended. So I'm gonna keep it at that. So this book is called A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This is a YA mystery book. This is like the perfect book, I would say, if you are in a reading slump, because this has so many twists and turns. It's very fast paced, and the whole time I'm like trying to figure out like who actually murdered Andy Bell and Sal Singh, and it was just like it really took you on this roller coaster of like constantly questioning everyone. So I just love this, and it literally just kept me wanting more. Like I just like at the end of the book, I didn't see the ending coming for sure, but I just like loved Pip as a character, and I loved her dynamic with Ravi, that I was like, I cannot wait to read the second book, because this is a series. And I would definitely give it 4.5 stars because I just love it so much, and it's such a quick and easy read because you just get right into it. And it's really cool because it also includes like transcripts with like interviews and like text messages, so it's also really cool how the author included that. The next book I read is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So this book is the second book that I read from TJR, and I read her book One True Loves last year around this time and absolutely loved her writing. And so I heard some really great things about this book, and honestly I probably wouldn't have like reached for this book had Taylor Jenkins Reid, like, had she not written it. So I feel like it was one of those books I was like, I'm definitely gonna read it. So basically this is like more of a contemporary fiction book. There's not a ton of romance, even though romance is in here. It's like not the main part of the story. So basically this book talks about a famous like fictional Hollywood icon named Evelyn Hugo, and she was famous like the 50s, and like now when this book is written present time, she has lived more of like a private life away from all like the glamorous life of being a Hollywood actress. And she's also in her 90s at this point, so nobody really knows what she's up to because she's not really out there anymore, and she's kind of lived, like I said, a private life. And so she basically like unknown magazine reporter named Monique Grant to basically write her life story basically. And yeah, it's really cool because how she talks about her life story, she basically talks about it through these 7 husbands that she had. And I think what really made me love this book, like especially as I got into it, was just how there were so many like life lessons from this book. Like when you just read Evelyn's life, like there's so many things that you can take away from it. And especially like after I finished reading it, there were all of these things that just like kept coming to mind. Yeah, I don't want to give too much away, but I really love this book. There was so much in it, and the ending was definitely not what I expected for sure. So yeah, 5 out of 5 stars. Next book I read is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. You guys know what this book is about. You've seen it everywhere. It's literally like all over TikTok, I think. It's just such a famous book. This book centers around Olive, who is a PhD student. She is trying to convince her best friend On that she's totally over this guy that she went on a few dates with, but On really likes this guy, and he also really likes her as well. So, but obviously because of girl code, On's like, I'm not going to like date him or anything like that because you dated him. But Olive like completely swears that she's so over him, like she just didn't feel the sparks with him. But so because of that, obviously Olive wants her best friend to be happy, so she basically like kisses this guy named Adam right in front of her, Professor Adam Carlson, right in front of her. Not like because she ended up lying to her saying she was on a date, but really she was working in the lab that night, and she stumbles upon On, and so she ends up kissing just a random guy, happened to be Dr. Adam Carlson. So yeah, they end up fake dating because obviously On saw that and she was like, oh my gosh, Olive and Dr. Adam Carlson are dating. So word spreads around, so they have to fake date. And then there's also another reason why Adam basically like it also works in his favor for them to date. So just a lot of fun shenanigans that happens between Olive and Adam. The tropes in this book are fake dating, grumpy ex-sunshine, a little bit of age gap since they do have an 8-year age difference, but yeah, right amount of cheesiness and awareness of tropes, especially when they go like on a little like conference. And I think the thing I loved about this book was especially Olive's character. She's such a relatable character, and you start to see that throughout the book. Like she is definitely like not like a polished character at all, and I love that about her. She's a mess, and she, you know, just is so relatable in that sense. There's also talk of misogyny and sexual harassment in the STEM field, so I really loved how they addressed that. So I'm gonna give it 5 out of 5 stars for sure. Next book I read is Beach Read by Emily Henry. So this is also another hyped book, and I went into it thinking I'm going to really like it because everyone keeps talking about it, but for me it was just not my thing. I don't know, it was just not my thing. I felt like there was just moments where it just felt like when the two characters would get together, it was just like weird, because like those scenes would happen and then like not like there would be no talk or about anything. There was just a lot of miscommunication. It was just, I don't know, I just felt like it was just not the type of book for me. And I got like halfway through and I was like, I'm ready to just get this over with. Like I probably could have like DNF'd it or like did not like not even finish it, but I was like, I'm just gonna read it because like I'm halfway through it, like might as well. And it's not like a super long book, but it was just not my thing. Basically these two writers named Augustus Everett and January Andrews basically have writer's blocks, so they swap genres. So Augustus is known for writing literary fiction and January Andrews writes romance books, so they swap genres. And basically they go on different field trips to basically like help them write the next novel. I felt like the field trips like just were the main focus, I felt like, in certain scenes than their relationship. So that was a little bit like kind of weird because there were some talks of like cults and stuff like that, which I also found a little bit strange. But yeah, I don't know, but I still really liked how they discussed grief in this book. I really liked that part, but yeah, it's not my favorite book, so I'm gonna give it 3.5 stars. The next book that I read is The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. This is definitely like a cozy mystery for sure. So basically centers around a group of senior citizens in a retirement home, and they all are part of the Thursday Murder Club, hence the title. And they basically sit around and talk about different murder cases, but there's actually a real life murder case that they witness in the retirement home that they live in. So yeah, it's really fun to see them kind of like work together as they normally do, but like have to like solve this murder case about like someone that they actually know and have interacted with. So yeah, it's really fun, and there's definitely like British humor in here, which I know some people may not like. I personally didn't mind it at all. I also loved all the characters. I just loved their interactions with one another. This is also a book I feel like that is not like super fast paced like compared to A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This is definitely one of those books that like you can pick up and put down. So I felt like in that sense, I kind of like that fast-paced like kind of nature when it comes to a plot. So that's probably one of the reasons why I want to give it 4 stars. I think I'm gonna give it 3.5, but I still really liked it, and yeah, I loved all the characters, but I wouldn't say this is like my favorite like cozy mystery book. Bookish Life of Nina Hill. So this book is actually by Abby Waxman, and I would say this is a book that's definitely feel good and heartwarming. It also has like moments that are funny, but definitely a heartwarming book. If you're just like feeling down, I feel like this is the perfect book to read. Nina Hill, the main character, is like, I feel like me in a sense. She loves to read books. She is definitely a homebody, but she also has a cat named Phil, and she also owns a bookstore. But something that is like definitely like me in a certain sense, but like she's like to the extreme. She writes everything down in her planner. She's very type A, and like if it's in her planner, it's going to happen. That's kind of like her personality type. But things happen that basically like certain situations come up that she was not expecting, and it kind of forces her to like step outside of her comfort zone. And I love that because it really shows how you can't always have your life planned out 24/7, and you need to have a little bit of a spontaneity in life to just enjoy it to the fullest, you know? And I think that's what I'm taking away from this book. But yeah, I just loved her character. She's so quirky, and I love that about her. And there was also great discussions of anxiety in this book. I really love that as well. I honestly went into this book thinking it's just going to be a 3.75 star book. I gave it 5 stars because I still think about this character, and I love this character and all of the characters in this book. I could talk about this book all day, along with all the other 5-star books that I read. The next book is the polar opposite of that book. It is The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides, I don't really know, but this book basically is a thriller. This is the first thriller that I've read, so far at least, in the stack of books that I've mentioned so far. So this book centers on Alicia Berenson, who basically shoots her husband 5 times and never speaks another word. So that's kind of the setup for the book pretty much. And then we have a criminal psychotherapist named Theo Faber, who basically comes in to get Alicia to speak. So it's really interesting to see how he tries to get her to speak. And then it's also cool because we also get diary entries from Alicia during that time before she shoots her husband, or if she shot her husband. Definitely several moments where you're just like, oh my gosh, what is she gonna do? Like those moments, but I wouldn't say this is like creepy or scary. Ending just blew me away, and it made me like sit there and have to think. I was like, wait. So that's my favorite, when you're just like, when you finish a book and you're like, oh my gosh, how did this happen? How is this possible? So definitely 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read is Pack Up the Moon by Christine Higgins. This is definitely a sad book for sure. So basically this book centers around Lauren and Josh. They are like the perfect couple. They are newlyweds, so they're just like in that newlywed bliss until Lauren is diagnosed with a terminal illness, which means that she doesn't have long to live. She probably has like maybe a year to live. And so because of that, she ends up writing a letter for Josh to open the first year of her death as he navigates grief. And honestly, this book, you're gonna need tissues and Kleenex like right by you, because there are moments where it's just like so hard, because I've never gone through like grief of like losing someone who was super close to me, but I can only imagine. And I love the way that Kristen wrote this book and wrote what it looks like to go through grief. I absolutely connected with Josh's story, and I just loved it so much. But I think what really made this book so moving was that even when you go through the loss of someone, there is still you can still find joy and happiness even when you go through hard things like grief. When you just feel like there's when it feels like there's nothing to look forward to, we are reminded through this book that there is something more to life, and there's this renewed hope even when you do go through grief and losing someone you love. So I just love this book so much. Again, it's a sad book, so I would recommend you read it if you're if you are not super happy but also not super sad. I don't know if I would recommend this to someone if they're going through grief. Maybe not the initial stages of grief, but yeah, I guess warning, trigger warning that this obviously touches on grief. So yeah, but I absolutely loved this book, so I'm gonna give it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read is definitely the perfect book after reading Pack Up the Moon. This is Dial A For Aunties by Jessie Q. Sutanto. It centers around Meddy, who ends up accidentally killing her blind date, and she basically has to call or dial her 4 aunties to basically help her get rid of this body. But the problem is, the next day they have to cater this huge wedding that really this wedding is going to make or break their catering business. This will quite frankly boost their business. So obviously they can't cancel, of course not. So they have to find a way to dispose the body while also trying to obviously cater this wedding. So they get into a lot of hijinks. It's such a fun book to read. I literally read it in 24 hours because A, it's only 300 pages, and B, it was so fun. I love the dynamic between Meddy and her aunts, and it was just so much fun. Oh my gosh, I literally was sitting there so nervous when I was reading some parts because I was like, oh my gosh, how are they gonna pull this off? Literally so many times, but I absolutely love this book. Definitely giving it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read is The Inheritance Games. This is actually the first book in the Inheritance Games series, or trilogy, I guess, by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I absolutely went into this book thinking I'm gonna really like it, because there's like a bunch of different riddles and like puzzles, and it's like kind of like a mystery in a sense. So I just loved that. So going into it, I was like, I'm gonna like this book. So basically Avery Grahams inherits all of this money from this super wealthy man named Tobias Hawthorne. She doesn't know anything about like him, and she like has never met him in her life, so she's just so confused why she received all this money and why the rest of his family and his grandsons, the Hawthorns, don't get anything. Like they not even close to how much Avery will inherit. So it's just really fun to kind of see like why he gave her all this money and their connection. And yeah, it was just such an interesting book with a lot of different riddles and puzzles that her and the Hawthorne grandsons have to figure out. So it's really interesting. I would give this 4 stars because it was at the beginning of a trilogy, so it was a little bit slow, and there was a lot of like unpacking certain things and introducing characters, and so that's why I wouldn't give this like anything higher than 4. But yeah, still really loved it as like the beginning of a series. So yeah, 4 stars. Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. So this book is a romance book. So this book centers around 2 characters named Macy and Elliot. So Macy has a lot going for her. At the start of the book, she is a new pediatric resident. She is in the process of planning a wedding. So everything's going good for her until she runs into Elliot, who at this point has been the love of her life. And it's obviously very weird for her to run into him because she hasn't spoken to him or seen him in many, many years. And so things happen where obviously they see each other, but clearly there's still feelings there. And so it's kind of interesting as like in their present day, like kind of getting back into it. And there's definitely some awkward moments when they see each other and when they continue talking and whatnot, especially because they are in such different places in their lives. But this book basically goes like an alternating timeline. So it goes from then and now. So we get to learn like how Macy meets Elliot, how they become super close friends, and then how they start dating, and then what led them to basically stop talking. And so it's really interesting to see, especially they're kind of like growing up. I also love that they first bonded over books. I thought that was super sweet and super cute. It's really cool to be able to get a really good look into their past and kind of like how like their dynamic growing up. And I think it really helps us as readers to understand their love story. And yeah, especially when you find out why they stopped talking, like it wasn't anything like, oh, they just miscommunicated. Like it was actually like understandable for me as a reader to be like, okay, this makes sense. But yeah, absolutely loved their relationship and everything between the two of them. You can just feel it as you're reading it. So I just loved it so much. So definitely giving this 5 out of 5 stars. This is Finlay Donovan is Killing It by Elle Cosimano. So this book was definitely, I just really loved the plot. So basically this centers around Finlay, who is kind of like a struggling single mom. She's also a struggling novelist. So she's definitely like a character that is going through a lot. Let's just say that. And she ends up meeting with her agent because her agent's basically telling her like, you need to write another book. Like you're under contract, so you need to like write and publish another novel. So Finlay is most known for writing suspense thriller novels. She basically is having coffee with her agent and tells her basically the plot of her new suspense novel. Somebody overhears it and thinks she's actually a contract killer and basically asks her if she can basically dispose and kill her problem husband for a certain amount of money. Yeah, so Finlay accepts this offer, but she doesn't realize just how hard it is to get rid of this problem husband, and things get messy, and yeah, it's gonna be crazy. So yeah, really loved this book. I would give it 4 stars. It was fun, it was fast paced, and I think what I really loved about this book was the female friendships in this book. Also, the hardships of motherhood, especially in the beginning. Seeing that was really interesting because I obviously am not a mom, but I can only imagine just how hard it is, especially in her shoes. And so really seeing that was really cool, how she would literally do anything for her children. I love that so much. So definitely gonna give this 4 stars because it was a fun book, but I wouldn't say it was like 4.5 or higher like quality. So the next book I read is The Masterpiece by Francine Rivers. So if you guys don't know, Francine Rivers is a Christian romance author, and so she writes a lot of Christian fiction books. So this book centers around 2 basically like broken and lost people who end up kind of like coming together and forging this like really deep connection and friendship. I don't want to go into too much depth with it, but that's pretty much the premise of the book, and showing us how God, through his grace and mercy, reminds us that we can learn to, or we can be encouraged to repent, to be encouraged to forgive. So there's a lot of important lessons in this book. And also what's really beautiful is that even though there is this obvious love story in this book, I think what Francine Rivers does so well is, yes, there is this love story that she adds in her books, but there's an overall love story between us and God. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. I would say that this book, even though it does talk a lot about God and is really like made for obviously like a Christian audience, I feel like anybody who is interested, not even Christian, can read this book. So yeah, but I think it hits and just like resonates with me so much as a Christian, just seeing God's love for us and that no one is too far gone, and that God's love is it's so unconditional, which I think is such an important reminder. So there's so many just important lessons in here and great takeaways. So I would definitely recommend this, and yeah, 5 out of 5. This book I read is The Lies I Tell by Julie Clark. This is a domestic thriller. I actually love domestic thrillers. I haven't like read too many of them, but I do love this genre for sure. So the 2 women in this book are Meg Williams, who was a con artist. She is such a good like con artist. Like I felt like, especially throughout the book, I felt like I was believing the things that she was saying, and that's how con artists are, you know. They will lie so much that like anybody that hears them or has a conversation with them like believes them, and they're like, okay, I'll do that. So it's so crazy just how she's able to just like think on her feet and say all these things, and it's just so crazy. So we have Meg Williams, and then we have Kat Roberts, who basically is trying to expose Meg because she believes that Meg is responsible for something that horrific that happened to her 10 years ago, and so she's trying to expose her. But then something happens where both of them kind of like come together, and their lives basically intertwine. And so yeah, it's so crazy, and you kind of wonder throughout the book, like, is this for like, are both of these women doing something for revenge, or are they doing this for justice? So that's like the main thing that you kind of like wonder throughout the book. So yeah, I definitely really loved this book. I would give it 5 stars because it was just a book that literally kept me wondering, kept me just like thinking like what's gonna happen next, like just like making me question literally everything. The next 2 books I've actually done reading vlogs on, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, but yeah, I just wanted to share Better Than the Movies and We Were Kings. I will leave the reading vlog down below or in the cards so you can watch it, but I'm not going to talk too much about it. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that I did read these books, but if you guys want to know my full thoughts, check out the video. So we have 2 more books left to talk about. I'm literally out of breath. So yeah, we can do this. We can do this. Okay, so this is Good Girl, Bad Blood, which is basically the 2nd book in A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. Pip in this book is no longer a detective. She decides to release a true crime podcast with Ravi Singh about the murder case that she solved last year. Unfortunately, somebody close to Pip ends up going missing, and she basically has to put on her detective hat again because the police won't do anything to find this person. So she has no choice but to basically like find him herself because the police won't do anything about it. So yeah, it definitely, there are parts of this book where I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? The ending, guys, the ending, brace yourself, because I did not expect that at all. And I love that this book has like all of these twists and turns, but it all just makes sense in the end. Like, you know, those like mystery books or thrillers that like they put all of these like crazy plot twists, but they just don't make any sense. Like towards the end, they're just there for shock factor. This one, it all made sense in the end. So yeah, but yeah, the question like as you're reading it is like, will Pip be able to find this person? So yeah, I would give this 4.5 stars. I think I would give it the same rating as the first book. So this next book and the last book in this reading wrap up is The Hawthorne Legacy by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the second book in the Inheritance Games trilogy. Basically, Avery Grams finds out that she inherits all this money from Tobias Hawthorne. And if you didn't read the Inheritance Games, I don't know if I want, basically there was like a cliffhanger at the end of the book. So they're trying to like find this person and hopefully this person will get them more answers. So that's practically this book. There are a lot of like puzzles and a lot of secrets, especially a bunch of secrets that are revealed in this book that you really have to prepare for, because at some point I like missed this big secret because I was falling asleep and it was like late at night, and then I finally like went back and read it. I was like, oh my gosh. And then later on there were more secrets that were revealed, so it really does keep you on your toes and you're like, oh my gosh, how many more secrets can they reveal? Like my mind was literally exploding with all of these just revelations, but I absolutely loved it. There wasn't a ton of romance in this book, but honestly I didn't really care for it because there was so much going on already. I would say that you're not left by the end of the book, you're still like, there is still that love triangle. Like I feel like you're not going to change your mind too much after, like when you read this book. So yeah, so I just know in the next book I better get more romance, because I just like, I feel like in this book, like it didn't really change my mind. Let me know in the comments down below which team you're on, if you're on Team Grayson or Team Jameson. And if I agree with you, then I'll probably like comment back and say, oh, I'm on the same team as you. I'm gonna give this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. I'm literally out of breath, so tired of talking, but I hope you guys enjoyed this reading wrap up. I absolutely love talking about all these books. In the next video, I'm not going to read this many books, but granted, this was like 2 months worth of reading, so I didn't go like overboard, you know what I mean? But to some people, this may be overboard. I mean, I don't really know, but I absolutely loved reading these books. I'm just in love with reading. So yeah, but just forewarning, I'm only going to read like maybe like 10 books next month, or I guess this month because it's already November. So I'm gonna kind of take it down a notch, but yeah, I'm not gonna stop reading. I'm gonna try and like sprinkle in some other videos during this month so that it's not just all reading content, because I feel like that might get repetitive and boring. I don't know, let me know what you guys think, but I absolutely loved sharing some of the books that I read this month. Hopefully you guys will read them too. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next one. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and have a good day or night whenever you're watching this video, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye guys.